Hey everybody, what's going on? Welcome to another Wednesday episode of the Heavy Metallurgy Album Club. We're down a man tonight, but we will make this work just fine. I've got
another Wednesday episode.
Amateur hour over there up in honor. Come on. With my awesome co-hosts, Kellen and TJ. How are you guys doing this evening?
Doing good. How you doing, Marty?
Good. Doing good. TJ, how's the gravy situation?
I failed.
Yep.
I failed.
You tried so hard.
It was delicious, but it still ended up on my shirt.
Awesome. Well, welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us. We got a really cool episode tonight, an album to talk about as always. We're on Twitch. I don't know why. We're on there. We have Instagram. Let me get the banner up so you can see what that's all about. If you want to get show postings, I post stuff on Instagram. Don't have a Facebook yet. I just haven't crossed that precipice. I have enough social media to deal with. But yeah, that's it. Oh, new shirt. Hopefully the Riddick designs. I'll have something for you all to look at Friday. Getting close, very close. But anyway, what's been going on? Before we jump into this, Kellen, what's going on over at Killing for Company?
I just wrapped up a album review that I send over Marty's way. So maybe next week,
Monday.
Okay, awesome. There'll be a Devangelic album review, and then my long-awaited Chilean thrash piece just needs some editing. So hopefully by the time I see you next week, that'll be live for you to check out. Jeff over at Gas Mask and Hand Grenades in a couple of weeks has asked me to take part in I don't know if I'm getting ahead of myself here, but we've teased the idea of doing sort of a ambient, sort of industrial, whatever stream. So
cool.
Look for that sometime in the coming weeks.
That'll be fun. That'll be a good one. TJ, what's going on with you? Same old stuff.
Yeah, nothing. Nothing that really is pertinent to what we're doing here. You know, like who wants to hear about my new motorcycle? Nobody. Well, I do, but you know, But no, nothing, man. Nothing. You know, Glorious Dead's just practicing, and we started actually writing new material. Album 3 on its way.
Yeah, here it comes. Look out. Album 2 is actually on its way from the plan as we speak, so there'll be something for people here soon. And a bass line ripped off from Queen, allegedly. Don't know what Alan's talking about. The Evangelic album, maybe?
I think there has a conversation about MC Hammer.
Oh, right. Oh, gotcha.
That's the story.
Gotcha. Oh. Well, all right. Well, we're here tonight to discuss this album right here, Fascinator by Masters Hammer. Amazing artwork done by the vocalist, I believe. Love his style and color. It's very cool. Is there anything on the inside too? Oh yeah. Very cool artwork. He's been doing it for a while for their albums since they got back. I only have 4 of their records, but anyway, a little bit of history on the band. Just going to go to my friend Wikipedia. Masters Hammer are a black metal band from the Czech Republic. The band has remained active with several lineup changes between 87 and 95, with a reunion from 2009 to the present. It is considered one of the most representative groups of its kind in the country in interpreting their songs entirely in Czech. In addition, it is one of the precursors to incorporate symphonic metal elements. To a lesser extent, they have experimented with electronic sounds or avant-garde metal. The band has done 8 full-length albums, a handful of EPs, and splits as well. And as I was digging around for this episode, I was looking at lineups, and it looks like the lineups change a bit. It seems like the singer, Franta Storm, he is kind of the main guy. It looks like he does guitars, keyboards, songwriting, and the guy that has been with the band since I think the beginning, Necrocock. He was listed as a guest musician on this album as backup vocals. So it looks like there's like a revolving door of musicians going on in this band, but this Franta Storm guy appears to be the songwriting visionary of it, which I guess It's a lot to undertake. I mean, if anybody here in the chat has given this one their homework, done this homework this week, you find out it's a pretty eye-opening record. Let's get with first impressions. Kellen.
So I knew this band was kind of left field to begin with, but it had been, I honestly did not know they were still active. So when you pulled this out as in 2018, this album came out, it just completely caught me off guard. I did not know they were still putting out newer material. But yeah, you look at that album artwork, you already know this band's kind of experimental to begin with. The first impression, well, I was kind of bracing for this to be odd or avant-garde, but I did not know about the electronic elements. I kind of knew about the symphonic side of things, but that was a change for me. So it took a little bit getting used to. Nevertheless, you've kind of like think maybe the last one I felt this way that we talked about and just being sort of left field was the Unholy record you pulled out.
Yeah.
Where it was like, okay, this band's been around for a while and they're still doing very strange stuff. So I really dug it, but I'm in terms of being well versed with the entirety of their catalog, I am not. So this was a good place for me to dive in and check up on the band.
Right on, TJ. First impression.
Yeah. These kind of Slavic Eastern European bands have a tendency to lean to the bizarre, and I'm like with Kellen on this. This is a band I've seen the name in print a million times over the years, and it's just something I've never bothered to listen to. And if I've heard it in the past, I don't, might have been a song or something. So my initial expectation was for initially when you were like, because you played this for me over at the basement over at Beinrune headquarters there, I expected something a lot different than what ended up coming out, and I was really surprised actually how consistent and cool this is, and how unique, how very unique this is. I don't have any real, I went back and listened to like one song from like 4 albums back or something, and it's like there's still an identity that's still very present in this, and that obviously if it's just the one guy doing a lot of the writing and arranging, that kind of stands to reason why. But yeah, I was surprised how cool this really turned out to be.
Yeah, I picked this record up used in Grand Rapids for under $20, or maybe around $20, and I only have of their catalog. I've got The Ritual. I think this is their debut.
Right.
Which is decidedly a lot more straight up black metal. Not even though it is a little more black metal minded, it still has a unique vibe to it. And this one I always had on cassette back in the day. End up getting rid of the tape. It's the Gilmanisa Occultist. I don't know. Second album. And then I have one of the reunion albums. I don't know exactly what don't know how to say that, but this Fascinator album is by far their most adventurous, their best produced, and I'm just really surprised at how comfortable they sound in their own skin. I like experimentation when it comes to this type of music, and I've mentioned this on the channel bunches of times, being back in the day when I was doing a lot of reviews and receiving a lot of promos and stuff, it was always the really avant-garde, unique stuff that always made me go, wow, this is amazing. I'd give it a great review. And then once it landed on the shelf, I wouldn't come back to it, because I always ended up going for the comfort food style releases, the Left Hand Paths, the Kiss, the, whatever. And, but this album has a mix of experimentation on it that really works for me. It's it's seemingly completely coming from a unique place, and they don't do it in a gross way, if that makes sense. And this kind of leads into my next question. The Czech Republic, or Czechia, has seemingly avoided direct outside metal influence, which has afforded Master's Hammer a path of creativity seemingly all their own. Though major though minor influences have crept in, how would you describe their sound and evolution? Is there such a thing as too much experimentation? If so, has this band kept it controlled enough not to alienate curious metal fans?
Yeah, so I think there's actually maybe a whole episode that we could do, or that's like a heavy Metallurgy Friday, about bands that sort of appear whose influences start behind the Iron Curtain.
Mm.
I'm curious to kind of talk about this, and I don't know what it was like if you were trying to listen to heavy metal releases within the Soviet Union, but at some level, I wonder if that contributes to their ability to sort of operate independently and think independently. So when they arrive in the scene after the curtain is fallen, if they feel a little more liberated and like you said, comfortable in their own skin to do whatever they wanted.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I that's kind of where I'm leaning in terms of where their creativity comes from. We'll kind of get into their songwriting, but the experimental nature of the band, and if ever gets too much, I guess the short answer is no. In the sense that I think it's important that bands continue to take chances artistically. I personally like it. Like to see bands, especially it's cool to see one that's been around for such a long time, continually to push themselves. But it's always a question of how well that experimentation is executed and how your individual tastes vary. The core of their sound, like TJ mentioned, though, I think if you were to just strip away all the additional instruments on this record, every sort of like peripheral influence, it's still very much the same. Like if you go back to the Ritual and you listen to them just as sort of this blackened thrash sort of band, I'll just leave it there.
Mm-hmm.
That's still there here on this record. It's just all the other stuff going on that makes it really interesting. I think if it had just been the Ritual Part 2, which I don't think they ever released, I think it'd be actually a little bit less of a compelling listen. The fact that they've been around for 30 years and are still trying to push themselves, I think that's actually one of the more captivating aspects of this record.
Yeah, their first demo came out in '87. Yep. All right, TJ.
Yeah. Let me. I was so busy listening to Kellen. So, I don't know. This. It's such a unique listen. And Tim was saying, making a comment about liking more black metal. Me, and it's like this record doesn't present that way to me at all. Blackness to it, like in on the edges or through the center and some of the guitars, but this doesn't come across that way at all. I mean, there's such a uniqueness to what they're doing, that I don't know, and again, not being familiar with earlier stuff, and Kellen saying like black and thrash, but then he even kind of affirms when like there's a sound to this that carries back towards the beginning of the band. So obviously the central man here is carried his influence through the entirety of their discography. So, but this is just kind of one of the most unique albums I've heard in a long time, where they're kind of charting their own path with this. It's like there's little things like you can pick up on like that seem like Western influence, but like to pin it down, like, where have I heard that riff? What band does that sound like? We all kind of do that on some level, to some degree when we listen to new bands. We always kind of, a lot of us anyway, I know I'm guilty of it. Something new, and I'm always kind of trying to pick it apart and like, what is this? Who is this? Where are they drawn from? What wells are they diving into to create this sound? But these guys, it's like, I don't know, you pick up on like the folk influence and the things that are kind of more uniquely from that part of the world. And as experimentation goes, it's like I think you can experiment your way into oblivion as a band, and become something completely unfamiliar from what you initially started as. And as the creative muse drives a person, what can you say? I mean, we can, as listeners, as fans, we sit here and be like, oh, that I really used to like that band, and then they put out this record, and what a piece of shit. I do that. I mean, I think we all have, and because they just decided, oh, well, we don't want to be whatever anymore. I mean, there's so many bands. I mean, you look at like Anathema, the first EP and album, whatever, and they were like this death metal band, and then now they're like Pink Floyd or whatever, and and people really dig it. But for me, it was like, I didn't care. But then still, like you say, Marty, like you hear these things that are unique and different, and they experiment. And I know for me, and I've said it on here before, where I'm really inspired to hear bands that want to reach kind of outside of what they're doing too. So for me, it's a double-edged sword. At one point, it's like, it's really cool. You hear a band you really like, and then they do stuff that is so kind of, just different, but for me, it kind of usually lays more inside of like the way they're crafting riffs and song structures and things like that. You take like, say the opening track off of Immolation's Atonement, right? There's that main riff in that song. I think it's the main track. It is just like the most singularly bizarre riff I've ever heard written. And it is just so amazing. And it's like being able to think outside of that box and write in that way and experiment in those terms. For me, that's kind of where, but then you get into like where they get into these huge arrangements and different instruments and doing all sorts of other crap, where a lot of bands, to me, it can really kind of kill what made them cool in the first place. But with these guys, I don't know. I mean, it just, I don't know. I mean, again, not being familiar with the early stuff all that much, it doesn't feel like any of this is forced or, it's over the top in a way that's just like, let's just throw everything at the wall and see what sticks, it feels very kind of natural. How was it you said, Marty? They weren't
cinematic.
Well, not that, but you just something about how they weren't over the top of I can't remember what you said, but like it doesn't seem like the record seems like outside of their realm or anything. The songs and everything they're doing just seems like it just feels very natural, like it's supposed to be. Everything just fits really well. So, in those terms, like, yeah. So, I mean, I think it can be a double-edged sword to experiment. And with these guys, I think, they're in their own kind of world, in their own kind of bubble, doing their thing. And they have obviously the stuff that's influenced them. They didn't concoct this music in a vacuum, as far as influence goes, but they're very much very singular sounding group. So anyway, there's my rambling, whatever.
Right on. And where I was going with this question is, I mean, you think of, Greek black metal has its own sound, typically.
Right.
Norwegian black metal, I mean, it only takes a few chords to tell that it's Norwegian black metal. If it's like Ulver or Vinder or, Enslaved, it doesn't. You could tell those bands shared members. They shared similar, environment, all of the whole thing. With this band, they've always been a little off. And the thing that when I said, how would you describe their sound and evolution? I would describe it as no holds barred and pretty brave, but they don't go to the point where, is there such a thing as too much experimentation? I would say yes. I appreciate experimentation. I think it's a good thing, but a lot of bands, especially in metal, they don't get it. They don't get it. The first thing I think of is like Into the Pandemonium. Here's some young dudes that had big, grand avant-garde ideas, and their first attempt at it was not great. It wasn't great. You start off your song with Mexican Radio by Wall of Voodoo. Stupid idea. But by the time they grew as musicians and aged, they put out Monotheist, which to me is finally the avant-garde piece of art that they had been striving for their entire career. That album rules. It's rules on the fact that it's still Celtic Frost. It's still heavy as hell. and the artistic elements work and sit perfectly within the music. And that's one thing about this record, this Fascinator record, is it, yes, they're the core elements of Master's Hammer is this dark black metalish type of occult metal. I'm going to call it occult metal. I don't know that I really want to call it black metal. I listen to it, it's very theatrical, it's very cinematic. The riffs, the chord progressions are very dark, simplistic but dark, and they just have like this sinister tone to them, which is really cool. And the way they layer all this electronic stuff on top, it doesn't sound like two different bands jamming in the same space. It sounds like everything needs to be there. That's what I really like about this record. And I skimmed a couple, listened to a couple seconds of this and that, and the thing that really stands out most about this is the production. But the way that the electronics sit within, you can hear everything, it all fits. It isn't off-putting or offensive or weird. I mean, it's weird, but it isn't stepping out of any bounds. They've experimented in a way that that works perfectly. And whether you want to try it or not, get on in a, Pandemonium is a muddled mess. Yeah, there's some good songs on there, I guess. But
well, Into the Pandemonium isn't no Cherry Orchards though, but still,
right.
What are you gonna
That's
do?
just them struggling to find a hit. But I don't know what I'm trying to say here. But as far as the experimentation, I don't think, if you're willing to sit and listen to something a little bit unique, this isn't alienating. The songs are so well written. The core foundation is solid. All the stuff they've added over the top is it makes sense. It makes sense within the song. And someone mentioned that they thought the vocals were the most boring thing about the record. Man, I don't know. I like Francis Storm's. He's got like this sinister croak, and even though you can't understand what he's saying, it gives it kind of an abstract, like another instrument. I like his vocals. I like where they sit in the mix, and I like the fact that they add other clean guys singing and like choir type stuff, and the female accompaniment, like the real ethereal vocal style. The way it's all layered together, to me, it's really well considered. Nothing sounds out of step or out of place here. Let's just,
Hey, Marty, can I just follow up there? Yeah,
okay.
So are you familiar with like the middle portion of their catalog? I guess I'm talking
I showed
about
you the
like
4 albums I have. I've got early, I've got one reunion, and then I've got their latest. So I'm missing like 3 or 4 records, I guess.
Okay, because I think, for me, Celtic Frost is the clear sort of target here, or comparison, I think. And to your point, I wonder, as someone who's that catalog, I think is a little bit more like well versed. I think that because of they're a little bit more recognizable as a band by comparison to Master's Hammer. And I wonder if, like we're talking about, in Pandemonium here, if there's other sort of shortcomings within the catalog of Master's Hammer, right? Like they keep on pushing on boundaries, and clearly like Pandemonium is one of the like, okay, missteps. They reach too far, but you've kind of like, as the band grows, I guess when I talked about like one of the reasons I would defend sort of experimentation, and like it's the execution for me, right? So I think as opposed to what I heard when you asked that question, is too much experimentation a bad thing? Like, I think that's more a statement of, should bands or genres have limitations? Like, should there be boundaries that we are comfortable sort of setting, and anytime a band oversteps them, it's too much? As opposed to, I think what's happening on Pandemonium is it's like they're attempting to do something and it's just a gross overstep or misstep.
And the thing of it is, they did it, and you can listen to that album and hear them sitting in the studio, patting themselves on the back. We're really doing something special here. Whereas I listen to this record, I get the guys writing the songs. He's having fun adding all the shit to it, but at the end of the day, it benefits the song. It isn't just like, ooh, one in their pride. It's going to be just a stupid drum machine and a sample over and over, or sure, whatever stupid crap was on, in the Panama. What a turd of record. I'm sorry. People that like that record, Fonzie, thumbs up, but man, it's not good. Anyway.
Okay. That's all I just wanted to chime in there. Anyway.
All right. Well, we're going to leave you up and discuss the musicality and composition of Fascinator.
Okay, so for me, this here's my little food analogy. This to me was like a record that was like consuming sushi. Like it just came in very small bites and it had a little bit of something strange with each one. Um, but the songwriting, first and foremost, I guess, is it felt very for as elaborate and as intricate as it is on this record. It also feels incredibly concise. Like for all their big ideas, these most of the songs I don't think eclipse 5 minutes. They're all
No.
like 3 minute, 4 minute little things that you kind of take in and then breeze on to the next one. Which I actually, to this maybe a criticism, like I thought that some of these ideas were not explored completely. Now I don't know if like that's probably to each his own sort of deal, but
See, I can see what you're saying there, but when I just put this on and listen to it, it all flows together for me and it seems seamless. It Even though there's breaks, it seems like a continuation on the theme where it feels more like an overall presentation than song. Here's another song. Oh, here's another song. There's a vibe and a flow.
for sure, like it's the same raw material.
Yeah.
Right. You never feel that it's like a shift into a different band or album. But yeah, I guess, like I mentioned before, there's something just, if you want to call it occult metal, about this. Now, I think their second record is when they started to introduce a little bit more symphonic elements. But it's most of like I heard it as a darkened or blackened sort of thrash listen mostly. And or if you want to just call it occult metal. But on top of that, so you have sung female vocals, a like different keys going on, this electro sort of pulsing element. There's just tons of different influences happening on this record, what makes it very diverse. But all of it, like Marty said, is tied together in the sense that on every single song, I always felt like they had at least one sort of extremity in that sound. So you never felt like one song was completely stripped down, whereas the next one was just over the top crazy. I think the one, if I was going to say the one part that caught me off guard is, I don't know, this is a statement in terms of the electronics, I don't understand the language or just the vocal cadence. But for me, like there almost was a strange sort of like electro industrial dance element in terms of the way he delivered the lines. So I don't, that could be, I don't know if that's just me, but I don't know if that's lost in translation because I don't know, what he's saying. And if I knew the lyrics, I'd be able to understand it more. But that was the one thing that stood out to me, is at the electronic sort of almost dancey at times vocal delivery. So yeah, that's kind of my short little conversation on the songwriting style.
All right, Deej.
Yeah, massive arrangements, very focused. Some of the riffs are very basic but very pummeling. There's a lot, a lot of like the keyboards and stuff have a very manic feel to them, which is really cool. The arrangements are very grandiose, is the word I would use, rather than, it's like cinematic theatrical. It's like they really come at you in a way that feels like a festival or circus-like in a way, but not in a ridiculous way. Like there's just this grandioseness to it. These guys, very talented. It sounds like orchestra at times, but it's just all, electronic instruments and stuff. It has a very orchestral feel to it, the way he presents it. It's very big. It's very boomy. The vocals, I like what he's doing with them. There's times when, it drops off. I do like Marty said, like he has a croak to him, kind of, reminiscent of a bot maybe, but not as high pitched, but still kind of that Kermit the Frog-esque type thing that's really cool. It's so well put together, and you know, and everything too. It's like, I don't feel like, you know, everything just kind of has a really good flow. The songs kind of come in and go. And I get, you know, to Kellen's point, I guess there are a few moments where you're kind of sitting there going, God, I, you know, wish there was a little more of that maybe, or, you know, maybe, you know, they kind of zip in and zip out of it, and before you know it, it's done. But I mean, it's 50 minutes of music on here. So there's a lot to chew on either way. But I think overall they just present this in such a way that's so cohesive and well put together, and in such a unique way. It's just really well done.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have much more to add to that, other than the fact that, you know, going back to Kellen's point, and I didn't really sit and look at the track listing until tonight, when we have to like pick favorites and whatever. I'm like paying attention, but it feels like a concept album to me. It feels the way the flow from start to finish of this record, and then ending on what is it, Lost in Fjords. It's like a symphonic ending. It's perfect. It's the way it's like so much going on and so much to process and so much atmosphere going through this whole album. And at the end, just, you know, ending on a dark, mellow vibe. It's the composition. It seems like there's a lot of forethought to this, how they wanted the album structured. I mean, we'll get into favorite tracks here. There's one song in particular that stands out to me, but I really think the musicality, like I said, simplistic chord progressions, you know, being in a death metal band. I mean, me and TJ, we're trying to break away from it a bit, but my brain always wants to make complex riffs. I just want to write busy riffs, and to hear patience and consideration for, like, say, oh, these riffs they need to be dark. They need to present something, but they're also a foundation for everything else to go on top. I just really respect that style of songwriting, because I wish I was better at it. We're getting there. We're going to experiment more and more with that. But for that reason, I really like all the consideration. I don't know how long it took to write this record. I mean, what's the difference between 2 years. So apparently he was on a tear. Yeah, plus they play shows, and their shows seem to be, from the photos I've seen, very, you know, out there. They've got goofy customized instruments and naked dancing ladies, and it looks like a good time, to be honest. Yeah, I really, hats off. I really enjoy this record a lot more than I thought I would when I bought it. I bought it because it was cheap, and I've liked what they've done, what I've heard in the past, and I wasn't expecting it to be as forward thinking and expansive and cinematic and theatrical, all those adjectives. But let's discuss the production. Kellen.
Production, I thought, for the most part, was a major success. What was the symphonic metal the kind of gothy one that we listened to a while
Sirenia.
ago? Sirenia. Okay. So Sirenia's this is a good comparison contrast moment, because as sort of opulent as this record is, it never doesn't feel sterile, which I think is sort of a success, right?
Feels like, very organic.
Right. I mean, it just, like, everything about it didn't have that, like, you know, we need to deprive it of its you know, life in order to be able to hear it clearly. So for as busy as this record is, everything I thought was well positioned. If anything, like, his vocals, I feel, is actually a little bit, not completely like recessed, but I didn't feel was also right front center, meaning like it was well blended into the mix. Though my one criticism for the production is I would have liked to have heard it as like a larger stage, meaning like it just felt to me, I don't know if it was meant to be listened to over headphones or something like that, but for as vast as this sound is, I just felt the stage, or how the instruments were placed, were sort of on top of one another. While I could hear them clearly, that was great. I just felt like I would have liked a little bit more overall room to work with. So I don't know if that's a question of, like, I think at this point the band is putting out their material on their own label.
Yeah.
So I don't know what their like production budget is or anything like that, but I would have loved to seen like a larger stage, or this record could feel a little bit, in scale would feel a little bit bigger. But all the instruments, tonally, texturally, all of that was like on display. So none of it felt like it was compromised. The contrast between these sort of occult guitars versus electronica, like that shouldn't work. Right?
It
Like
shouldn't.
right.
There's some shit going on here that shouldn't
Yeah.
work, but it does.
In some principle, and maybe for a lot of people it may not. But if you're into something kind of avant-garde-ish, I think it does prove like how you can take chances and coordinate them to work with one another. So I was actually, pretty pleased with the production outside of that sort of like scale element. It was a pretty well-produced record.
All right. TJ.
The only real criticisms I do have are kind of the production. And my criticisms are kind of give and take. It's like there are moments where I wish the guitar was a little more prevalent. There are moments when, where there's so much going on that there's a wash and phasing and everything kind of gets mushy, but it all seems to kind of balance back out. And
are you sure that's not your headphones you're using?
No, I'm not listening. No, I don't. Not having those issues with the headphones, and then there's moments where it's a little boomy. But it's just like it's just here and there. It's like kind of comes and goes. It's like because there's really good life in the production and everything is there, and I think it just. It's not, it's nitpicking more than complaining, really. I mean, it's just like his vocals and stuff. It's like there's moments where his vocals kind of get washed over by everything that's going on because there's such a, cacophony of shit happening. And like where Kellen's saying, maybe if things were a little bit more spread out, I think the production would have benefited more from a crisper production, something that was a little sharper and brought a lot more, because you guys are saying it's very defined, and it's like it isn't to my ears. So I think I still, again, I'm nitpicking more than I'm complaining, because I think overall everything, I listen to the record, I listen to the songs, and I'm not really missing anything, and I really enjoy it, and the production feels good on everything. It feels like it's right for the sound of this. It's just there's moments in here where I think the boisterous nature of what the songs are and the production, and there's so much happening. I think it just kind of has a tendency to kind of sonically mush things down a little bit. So more than that's just kind of an observation. I really can't say like, oh, its production's terrible, and it's it's not anything like that. It's just there's little things where I wish were a little different, again, like his vocals. I like his vocals, and there's places where he's kind of, he's kind of stepping back, and the other stuff is kind of way on top of him. And then it happens with the female backup vocals and stuff like that. Oh, my vertical player it's just here to piss Marty off, really.
There's no way that could be worth a crap. It's got its own speakers built into it, which means it's probably garbage.
Well, I have it lined into my main system, and it sounds wonderful. And Marty's just a hater because he didn't have the idea.
Because
one time I had my own idea, and what does he say? Dumb! It's dumb.
That's why you should just keep following me, because my ideas aren't as dumb as yours.
I disagree, because look at it. Look how cool it is. You can't escape it. Look at they got the thing happening. It's whatever. Anyway,
you can't scratch on that record.
But overall, no, overall, my criticisms are just really kind of my own kind of little nitpicks. I think the production it's a decent production that I think works for this record, and I have no real problem with it. I just wish little things were a little bit more prevalent and maybe cleaner in spots. But overall, I think they achieved. It works for the record, and I like the record, so it's
it makes me wonder if you guys are listening to the same record I was, because I did not hear any, like, I don't know. I listened to this record. It seems like everything's in its place. Everything sounds really warm and organic, spacious. I can hear the riffs underneath. I love the frantic nature of his vocals, even though he's just kind of like talking kind of like in a grim fashion. There's like a manic vibe feel to it, like someone maybe breaking down of sanity. Maybe this whole thing is like a loss of sanity type of thing. I don't know. Again, this conjecture. I haven't read any of the lyrics. They're all, obviously in a different language, but I really like the production, and I like one thing I wanted to mention in the song, in the songwriting and stuff, is you're going back and looking at earlier. You're looking at the member list. For drums, it's listed not drums but timpani, and you can hear that on this record. The timpani that adds a very orchestral, big, cinematic vibe. And this band is they kind of blow me away that they're doing all these things that shouldn't work or should sound half-assed, but they don't. And the fact that the production, because this production, it's okay, but it's a little bit more underground, a little raw around the edges sounding. They really, whatever they're doing, if they're going to a studio, if they're doing it all at home, I don't know, but it's you really can't complain with what it came up here. Every weird element or tangent they go off on, I think is vibrantly represented. I think it sounds good. The sound field blows away a lot of records coming out nowadays that sound like plugins, sterile and lifeless, or run-of-the-mill OSDM, or cookie cutter black metal sound. It's got a life to it. The production has a life and an atmosphere to it, which some things might get stepped on once in a while, but there's a lot going on. There's a lot to process here. I guess it's to be expected, but I guess I didn't really experience that, so I don't know.
I'll just jump in. Since we got time here, so I'll split the difference with you. Like
we're not bargaining for anything here.
Yes, I'm not really going to
have a $12,000 system. I'm just saying, I've got Goodwill shit in the other room.
Well, none of us have the vertical, record player.
True.
So we'll
I
now down.
One day,
you too will have a piece of shit sitting on your back shelf. Anyway.
Okay, so I don't agree with like the spatial element to this record, but I wanted to follow up with when TJ, you mentioned you would have liked a crisper sort of sound to this. For me, it's
I don't even know how to process that. CRISPR on this. Go ahead.
So okay. I guess my question is like the balancing of the sort of occultish element to this record, because I do think that's an important thing to keep in place. Like for me, it succeeds, and on one hand, having these like symphonic elements or this electro dance pulsating thing going on at the same time, being like a band that has held on to whatever you found on Ritual. Like I think the love from the guitarist perspective, if I heard that cleaned up anymore, I would feel it had lost a little bit of like what made the band initially charming. So I just do you care or even hear like the occultish element that Marty and I seem to like be holding on to, or are you still thinking like you can clean it up while holding on to that?
No,
identity?
I like I said, the overall production of this I think works, and I get all that. I definitely, like somebody, I think it was Tim said something about black metal. This album doesn't strike me as black metal at all, but I hear the blackness in it. And again, if this was produced in a different way, I don't know if it would work necessarily. There's moments in this when I'm listening to it where I feel like it could have had a different kind of production that might have been cool, and I mean crisp in the sense of like how when you put on one of Marty's beloved power metal records and how crisp those are produced. I mean, in that sense.
Well, those are shit out in a Play-Doh Fun Factory. I mean, this is top of the line studio stuff.
And I'm just saying, it's like there's so much going on here. And there's moments where the sonic wash kind of steps on, you know, they step on each other in spots where it would have been like, well, you know, it would have been cool if, you know, there had been, you know, more work on that, where all this stuff had kind of come across different. But again, with the way this band presents itself and the blackness of it and whatever, and that kind of occult, whatever you want to tag with it, I don't know that would still be an appropriate approach for production on this. And I do like it. It's just I'm being more nitpicky than anything else. Than it's an overt criticism where, like, I really think that they should have gone and seen what's his nuts and who produced the last 55 Halloween records and had that fucking guy do it. I don't think that at all. You know, I don't think that at all. You know, because it just you listen to this record and it's like, no, you don't want it to sound like that. But I'm just kind of going through it in my head and listening to it. And it's like, you know, it would have been kind of cool if this had been cleaned up, if the guitar had been a little bit more out front, you know, if the vocals had lived in a different spot, you know, if the drums had, you know. But again, they are going for this very, you know, just grandiose. Again, I will use that word, production. The songs, the arrangements are just very big. They're presenting these very huge arrangements, and it's all part of what they're doing. So I don't think it can really be anything beyond what it is, you know, as far in the sonic realm and how they produced it. Because, you know, like you say, timpani, I noticed it's all in there. You know, they're using all these elements to really present this really huge sound. So for me, it's just like, yeah, I would have liked, you know, I like a little more focus on the guitars and things like that, you know. But it's again, I'm just being more, you know, I'm just, you know, picking at gnats and little things and stuff. And it's nothing that's like killing this record for me at all. It's you know, just an observation and whatever. So if that makes any sense, clears up my bullshit.
Right on. Are we all good here? We want to move on?
Good.
Favorite, least favorite songs. TJ, you're up. We'll start with you.
I like the Ve Tika, which translates, I suppose, in the bond of silence. I like that the killer intro. It has a very festival feel to it, like I mentioned before. The verses are really cool. What is this? Lincola. I love the bridge. Uses different.
The bridge is like unexpected and goes into like a weird. It's cool.
Yeah, it's very cool. My least favorite is kind of the what the hell is this? It's a Satanska necrofinky porno. I don't know what the fuck. It's the EDM shit, you know. It's the electro stuff. It's like, I don't hate it. I think they do a cool job of they kind of weave it in, you know. They weave it into the stuff pretty in a cool way. But that song, that shit kind of just was like a little, you know. But it didn't ruin the song. It was just this moment. Like I was telling you in the dugout before, it's like they start kind of drifting towards the ditch of bizarre Eastern European shit, weirdness, and then they're like, no, we're gonna come back over here and get back between the lines and finish this really cool song we're doing. And it's kind of a moment, but it's like, and with all the electronic stuff that is in here in spots, it's the only one that really kind of stuck out to me, like kind of like, you know. And again, it's more of a nitpick than a real criticism. So,
all right, Kellen.
So I will actually follow up with the. I mean, we're gonna struggle here with these names, but forgive me. Yeah, the Ve Tisha, that one, track number 3. And the other one that I pulled out that's in the same vein for me is track number 6, Estetica Dabla. Both of those for me were like some of the thrashier or faster paced songs at times, right? Like they don't stay anywhere too long, but they would launch into something that was a bit more up tempo and intricate, and I would like, oh, here's a metal element, and then they kind of rewind it into something else. But because these songs are so concise, like every time you get a moment like that, it really stands out by contrast to sort of this symphonic exploration that's going on. The other element, like I just wanted to briefly touch on this. I think it's track number 8. Estalani Devoronishni Nikki or nailed it. Track number 8.
Durka Durka.
It's sort of,
Chechen? Are you Chechen? Yeah, that's cool.
it starts with like these like almost a doomier female sung vocals that begin and like bookend the song. So like begins with that and exits with it. Anyway, like in the middle portion of it, it kind of goes back to Marty's point about like the cohesiveness of this record. But it was a cool moment where they sort of flexed a different dynamic muscle that they had, right? Like there's in this pocket, they can do that. We've talked about this several times. Like instrumentals on records can be a major like shortcoming, an afterthought. And you always want to end your album with like a strong closer. This is a unique record that like ends with an instrumental that is perfectly like is a great moment. It ends incredibly well on this Lost in Fjords. Got that one. So proud. Anyway, I thought that was a cool closer to end on like that kind of like orchestral element, and it brings a little bit of drama to this at the end. So the satanic porno, I didn't like that one either. But another one that I wanted to kind of highlight as an odd track is track number 10, the Odliv Moscou. It sounds like there's a phone ringing, like this, like an actual. They deliberately put like a ringing phone in that song. I don't know if it's an electronic element, but I thought that was an odd choice and like was a weird distraction on this record for me. So,
all right. Well, as I stated earlier, there's nothing on here that bothers me, and even the EDM moments that pop up briefly here and there, I'm so clued in on, trying something different. There's so many different elements going on and weird little tangents that a little hit of EDM doesn't bother me. And the fact that my kid has been listening to a lot of Angus McSix, which there's a couple straight up EDM songs about dinosaurs on there that I like. So, I mean, maybe I've warmed up a little bit to that element more so than I should, but there's nothing on here I dislike. I like every song. I love the flow. I love the track listing. It's paced the way I can envision it. I mean, I can't envision it being paced any other way, but favorites, Lincola, not Ricola, but Lincola. The excitement in how the riffs build with cinematic like scope, very big sound. The song goes into an odd bridge that TJ mentioned. It was very unexpected, which is one thing that I think is cool about this. Maybe it's because there's so much going on. All the orchestral elements add a bit of distraction. The songs don't go where I think they're going to go, and they don't stick around long enough to repeat a lot. So, I mean, it's kind of like the whole album's a journey. The experimental synth solos keep this song melodic yet nice and weird. Crocodile, which I'm assuming is Chechen for crocodile, dark chord progressions and overall flow allow organic synth textures to take this song and band's overall sound to enchanting heights. Another one I liked a lot, Astralny Devonici. Is that a theremin? I put a question mark. Nothing is too experimental or off limits. Again, very dark progression in the guitars and heavy plodding drums. That the female vocals are ethereal and give the overall vibe of this track that occult presence that permeates the record. If I were to pick a song that initially I didn't like but end up loving is Kaletpa. The song feels even more experimental due to a sleazy guitar line or riff. That song. I wasn't expecting that. It's like completely out of character from the rest of the album. It offers a bit of light in an otherwise foreboding record before the blast beats and tremolo picking come back and reclaim the darkness. I think it's a really cool track. And about that time in the record, it's good to have something that's a little bit more light hearted and a good swagger to it. That song's got a lot of swagger to it. I didn't write down any more because, like I said, I will reiterate Kellen's praise of the final track, Lost in Fjords. Exactly the way the album should have ended. There's so much crap going on. There's so much atmosphere and weird stuff happening that, you know, something a little more simplistic, and you know, the orchestral arrangement of it and the sound and the vibe and the atmosphere is just a very mellow, sullen way to end the record. Thumbs up. I mean, I like this record quite a bit. For judgment, final thoughts, Kellen.
Awesome. This was a really cool record. I kind of knew that I'd be getting to something strange, but this went beyond that and still succeeded in entertaining me. I played it multiple times through without like needing to stop it or take a break from it. If I found this for whatever less than $20 as a record, I would definitely pick it up at a store. So awesome find. And I also in general want to like invest more time with the entirety of this band's catalog.
Sure. Yeah.
I think like the first two records seem to be classics. And I've heard those, but just in terms of how they've navigated the decades they've been around and the fact that they're still putting out cool stuff is like, I dig sort of out there avant-garde stuff. So I think I should be better acquainted with this band. The fact that all this time they're still putting out killer records makes you want to kind of backtrack and go check out more of their stuff. So really dug it. Go check it out. High recommendation.
Yeah, I definitely want to fill in the holes too. I've got, you know, quite a bit of space in between the records I have. TJ.
I give this record a B+, simply because, in the immortal words of Sergeant D, speak English or die. So it would have been nice if they had. It loses me a little bit with the foreign language vocal, you know, lyrics, but otherwise, it's a killer record, and I'm definitely going to end up picking up a copy of this at some point, and I do want to. I got the previous record queued up actually to listen to. I listened to the one track off that and one track off. I think the one with the watering pots there. I listened to one of those.
Oh, this one.
Yeah. So definitely dig
it
this.
Sounds
Definitely
like basically Fascinator without all of the orchestration over the top.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, they are definitely a unique band, doing their own thing. Definitely metal as hell. It's very cool. And, you know, you don't get a lot of this today where, you know, everybody's stepping on everybody's toes and riding everybody's coattails. And it's definitely cool. You know, might not be everybody's bag, but I definitely dig it. So for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I picked it, so I have a fondness for it, and the more I've listened to it, the more I like it. And I'll reiterate, it isn't for. I don't think this band is for everybody, but it's refreshing for a band to come at the listener with some new ideas that haven't been flogged endlessly by thousands of other bands. Let's face it, folks, there's too many bands. It's just the way it is. But they do so in such a way that makes sense. It works for them. It suits their sound, their ever growing and evolving sound. And yeah, I mean, I love this record. I think it's really well done, really inspiring in a lot of ways. Is it something that I would do personally? No, it isn't. But I can look at it from a fan perspective and be like, you know what, this is right up my alley. And it's a type of avant-garde experimentation that doesn't, you know, I can be impressed by bands doing crazy shit, but at the end of the day, I don't want to listen to crazy shit. I don't always want to be challenged. Sometimes I just want, like I said, that run over, ripped up pair of Converse that fit just perfectly. And I want to put that on instead of some fancy new running shoe, you know, type of, you know, to dip into Kellen's world a little bit there. Because, you know, it's runner's minds. We think alike, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, I mean, even the artwork, God, so good that actually draw little ghouls and like ghost type things that actually look translucent with paint. It's pretty impressive. Definitely, I would say check this out. It's a good record. It's out of the bunch I have, I like it probably the most. Yeah, that's it. I'm glad y'all humored me on this one. I was a little nervous picking it, to be honest, because who knows. But who's picking next? I've lost track. Kellen. All right. Here we go.
Okay, so hold on.
The Revenge War Metal Anthology. the entire discography.
Actually, you know what? You will probably hate me for another reason. Okay, so
Oh no.
this is Procession to Reap Heavens Apart.
Procession to Reap Heavens Apart.
I'm gonna make Marty listen to Doom. So
I will do it.
all right,
I will do it. Traditional style Doom or Death
Yep.
Doom? What are we getting at here?
It's Epic Doom.
Epic Doom. Okay. All right. I can do that. I mean, I'm a big fan of well, Alan turned me onto it and all of a sudden I can't remember their damn name.
Atlantean Codex.
Atlantean Codex. My God, they're so good. They're so good. But awesome. That's it. Friday. Show notes. Not quite sure what's going on Friday yet. Reached out to some people, either not getting back. Well, no one's getting back to me. So might be just me and Al talking about stuff we've listened to lately. That might be, those are always fun, but we'll figure something out. But anybody else have anything to add before we jump? Oh yeah. T-shirts. I'm hoping to have some up for you guys to buy. The Riddick design is going to be pretty sweet. But anyway, anybody have anything else to add before we jump out of here?
Nope.
Nope's all the way around. Well, cool. Screw you guys in. Everybody have a great night. Thanks for joining us, and we will see you on Friday. And you'll see Kellen again on Monday. With sun's out, guns out, by the way. He's distractingly showing off his man muscles. Anyway. Right on, everybody. Cheers. We'll see you on Friday. Later, devils. Yeah. You guys are funny. Cheers.